Hello, my beer friends and my comic book friends. I have a rare hour or two to myself here at home. My daughter and wife are off at a pizza party. Lots of exciting stuff happening at the end of the school year. So I'm actually here to share my comic book haul with you, and I also want to do some shout-outs. I've been watching, I'd say over the last, I don't know how many months, really picking up a lot of people that I subscribe to as there's more and more new people here in the YouTube comic book community. And probably the community is more diffuse, if that's the right word, than it used to be. I feel like at some point after I established myself making videos, I feel like I knew everybody and everyone knew who I was for a while, and then that stopped happening, and I start realizing I'm subscribing to people who might not know who I am until I subscribe to them, which is fine, but it just sort of shows how the community is now like probably a map with different territories on it. But I always want to find more cool people to hear what they have to say. So I want to do more shout-outs to people, of people who are new to me, or newish to me at this point. Whether or not they need those shout-outs, I don't know. But to let you guys know about them in case you don't know about them. So today I want to shout out 3 people, all of whom I think are really great. 2 of whom are over in Sweden. So here's to Mattias Lava. I think he's volcanic. I don't think Lava is his real last name. And to Joakim ComicCenter, or Joakim Comic Book Center, as an American, would probably say it. And I don't know if I even have that right. But both of these guys are really cool. Obviously, English is at least their second language, but they read comics in English. They speak English very well. They both do really interesting videos where they talk about their comics, and are very intelligent, interesting guys. Joakim ComicCenter also, I think, plays guitar. I think I've seen him play guitar on one video, and he has a number of videos where he's shown his drawings of characters like Batman and Spider-Man and Wonder Woman, and he has a very cool art style that I enjoy looking at. And Mattias Lava is one of my favorite people to listen to his comic book thoughts. And then another cool guy, I think in Texas, I might be wrong, is Clever Goose, or Clever Presents. He's changed his name. He's been on a while, on and off, but now he seems to be on quite regularly. And he has a very smooth, interesting style and a lot of interesting thoughts, and is an eclectic guy. And so check out his videos too. So I really like all 3 of those guys. I hope you'll check them out. They may or may not be your cup of tea. And another thing is, there's just winding up another one of those comic book community crossovers where they're reviewing Hush, issue at a time. If you haven't caught those, catch them. John Dacosta just today put up or was it last night? But anyway, the last one I've seen was by John Dacosta, and that was really good. And I have in my head something I want to do as another classic comic book series that's 12 issues that I would like to do. And I was thinking of only inviting people who haven't been in one of these things before. And I started making a list, and I came up with 40 people right away, so I won't be able to invite everybody. And I'll talk more about it later, I guess. I don't know whether to do it right after the Hush one ends, or shortly after the Hush one ends, or wait a few months. I've participated in 2 of them, the Watchmen one and the Dark Phoenix one, and it's a lot of fun, and it's really tempting to invite back people you've already done it with. But there's so many other people whose thoughts and opinions I'm interested in. So I'm mulling that over. So on to the comic books. I went to the comic book store and I had more time for browsing, and amazingly, I didn't buy a whole lot more comics. I picked up a whole bunch and then I put them back down, mostly because I still need to pay off my credit card that has that Jack Kirby that Jack Kirby Artist Edition on it. So, but I did pick up 2 books from, one from last week and one from last month. So I can blame this on Travis. He really talked it up on the comic book roundtable that I was a part of this past Saturday. It's a super attenuated man, if that's how you pronounce it. Superannuated man. Superannuated. Which Travis said turns out to mean someone who's out of time a little bit. Retro, I suppose you'd say. But maybe in a negative way. And it's extra wide. I guess it's the Golden Age size, maybe. I don't know why they did that, but to me that's fun. Luckily, my comic book store's already put it in a bag, but I think I have some Mylar bags that might fit it. Ooh, and the cover's made out of a different material, and it's this kind of black and white art that to me kind of harkens back to indie books, which were more closer to the underground comic book scene of the 80s and 90s. Now the indie comic book scene seems a little closer to the mainstream, if you will. So I'm looking forward to reading this, or looking at it. It sounded like it was semi-plotless. Okay, that's weird. Look at that. Previews in the back. Black and white previews to Drum Holler. So I'm a little bummed about that. I was hoping the whole thing was all art. But we'll see. If I don't like it, I will just berate Travis publicly as much as possible. And then the other, I think from last month, I saw that Rogue Trooper Classic #2 was coming up, or was coming out this week, and I saw they still had Rogue Trooper Classic #1. And I've been hearing them talk about Rogue Trooper on the podcast Wait What, which is this really long weekly podcast where they can be pretty snobby about comics, but I've grown to kind of like them. And they've talked a lot about Rogue Trooper. Oh, and like the Brass Sun, which was also published by 2000 AD, that was published by 2000 AD by themselves. This is IDW reprinting 2000 AD. It doesn't fit properly on the page. I kind of wish they had... So I think what it is it's a larger size thing in England, but with a different proportion, maybe not as proportionately tall. I wish they just printed it in the normal proportions, but I know most people want everything in the same standard comic book size. And I think it's about a alien fighting sort of super soldier or maybe robot who goes rogue after the war is done, but I'm not sure. It looks kind of cool, and the art is by Dave Gibbons. So I think this is early British Dave Gibbons art, so I really wanted to check that out. It looks, at first glance, it looks a little Wally Woodish to me. Sorry that I'm going to do a longer than normal haul video, even though I don't have that many comics. Morella and the Murders of the Rue Morgue. Scott on Twitter, Running with Comics, already said he found this disappointing, but I have my expectations lowered, but I'm still kind of psyched for it. This was the book I was looking forward to most this week, because I am just a long-time Richard Corbin fan, and up to this point, he's done a mostly great job at adopting Edgar Allan Poe's stories into his own unique little universe. I'm also somewhat mixed feelings about Infinity Man and the Forever People. I love Keith Geffin's art, the way it's developed into this Kirby pastiche, Kirby homage, but it has a lot of its own touches. So this cover looks really cool to me. But it's co-scripted by Dan DiDio. I also wonder, what are they thinking? They even advertise as brought to you by the people who did OMAC. OMAC was one of the first failures of the New 52. They canceled it after 7 issues. So that doesn't seem like a good way to advertise something. This is worth it to me for the artwork alone. But why did they decide to do the Forever People? I mean, I think of all the Kirby creations at DC, the Forever People are talked about the least. They're kind of their era too much. They were a group of young teenage hippies wandering around. Adults didn't understand them, and it was just very, 1968. Or 1971, as the case may be, because that's probably when they came out. And of course, there was always lots of good stuff in them, because it was Kirby at his peak. But it really didn't compare to Mr. Miracle or the New Gods. Why do they... And OMAC was also one, that by Kirby only lasted 10 or 7 issues. So I'm not sure why they choose to revive these ones, especially after OMAC failed. But I'm glad they're trying, actually. I'm very glad they're trying. I hope they... I hope they do a good job. Keith Geffen is also the co-scripter on Justice League 3000, and that's great. So if Keith Geffen is the magic ingredient, maybe it'll work. The next issue of Starlight, more Flash Gordon goodness, I hope. The next issue of Batman Eternal, which I don't think most weeks Batman Eternal ends up being my top book, but in a way it's still my most fun book because the weekly aspect makes it really fun. I almost pulled the trigger on picking up Future's End because I almost want another weekly book. But I looked at the preview art for Future's End today and it just didn't turn me on, so I postponed making that decision. And then I got Batgirl, which it's a Gail Simone issue, so it'll probably be at least very good and possibly great. Another one of these great painted covers. I should learn the name of the artist of these covers because he or she is great. I didn't pick up Shudder, which I should have, but I don't know. I decided to wait on that. My comic book store usually only sells out of a few things that quickly, so I can always pick things up almost always pick things up the next week. I also was thinking about picking up Red Skies, Red something, a new Image #1. I was really tempted, but I didn't pull the trigger because the art on the cover really kind of turned me off. And my store has everything bagged, so it would have been kind of a big deal to open it up and look at the art on the inside. But if that represented the art on the inside, I would have had trouble adjusting to it. But on the other hand, it's another Image science fiction comic, and Image is doing science fiction really well. So I'm hoping I'll hear other people review it, and then maybe I'll pick that up, that and Shudder next week. I loved the first issue of Shudder and wasn't crazy about the second issue of Shudder. So I'm also interested to see what people make of the third issue of Shudder. Okay. Thanks if you've made it this far, for indulging me and letting me turn this brief pickup video into a little bit of a ramble. Hope you're all well, and I'll talk to you later.